Hello and welcome. My name is Jai Edwards. I work for the Australian Red Cross as a recovery officer here in Victoria. Before I introduce today's facilitator, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands that each of us are on today and pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. Today we're here to talk about what a good night's sleep looks like and what we can do to all get the best night's rest. I'd like to welcome today's facilitator, Linda McCabe. Linda is the Senior Officer in the National Recovery Team at Red Cross, supporting states and territories prepare for, respond to, and recover well from disasters. Linda has a diverse background, a registered nurse, successful small business owner, and experience in working with people and communities in transition, including the closure of the Australian automotive industry, supporting staff and their families transition out of this industry. Today, Linda joins us from regional South Australia on the Yorke Peninsula. Welcome, Linda.
Thanks, Jai, and thanks, everyone. Welcome to the Red Cross Sleep Workshop. We do have quite a high number of registrations today. So just to make you feel really comfortable and part of the big sleep-deprived family today, here's a map of some of the locations where the attendees are dialing in. So as Jai mentioned, my name is Linda McCabe. I'm based in regional South Australia, and it is evening time, and unfortunately I have a Kelpie sitting behind me, so we'll just may have to put up with her snorting and probably going to sleep. But sleep is a very, very important topic, or should I say the lack of it, the lack of consistent, peaceful, restful and healing sleep. And how we came about developing this workshop was with conversations in the hundreds across many states in Australia or across Australia, starting conversations and asking, how are you sleeping? And quite often the response would be laughter, oh, sleep, what's that? Or I sleep really well, but my partner doesn't. Or I'd like to sleep well, but my partner snores and he or she don't sleep. So we found that the lack of sleep in any stage of recovery from a major event, the anxiety of preparing for an event or emergency, or even just the day-to-day life stresses, work stresses, family life, etc., really played an impact on people's ability to get a really great night's sleep, not only just one night, but consistently. So that's when we started with former colleague of mine, Robin Kirby, who's a psychologist specialising in emergency support and management, to really look at sleep and emergencies or life stresses and how we could put together, using the platform of Red Cross and our connections across the country within communities, to be able to share some best practice guidelines and some good advice, good common sense advice. So I do need to highlight that this isn't a clinical presentation, albeit we will talk about some medical and health terms. So definitely if you are seeking or needing to seek more help, there's a range of support, whether it be your local GP, your regional health nurse, the psychologist, sleep clinics, etc. And I'll be repeating that throughout the presentation so that we can just sit back and enjoy a general overview of what's called sleep hygiene. We will be from time to time talking about sensitive topics, so health topics, lack of sleep, challenges with breathing, some mental health and stress. So it really is important that perhaps some of these topics might be a little bit sensitive for the audience and might act as perhaps triggers or heightened awareness for perhaps some underlying challenges that you're having. Normally, if we were delivering this presentation face-to-face, we would have some extra support, usually with Red Cross volunteers, to sit with you or sit outside the room. We can't do that online. So perhaps as part of your introduction and settling into this presentation, you could just have in the back of your mind some support people or organisations that potentially you could reach out to if you find some challenging matters in the presentation today. So we have an agenda. Our aim is to provide some practical information and to help and tips and tricks to help you improve your quality of sleep or a loved one or friend, family. So the topics will help you increase the importance of sleep function. What is sleep actually about? What do we know about sleep? The awareness of sleep challenges and some of the factors that we can influence. And there are so many that we can take charge of, make choices and take control. Some tips with some good sleep habits. And we've got a sheet and some links to some resources. We're going to be doing a couple of exercises, reflection and practice, so not too pressured, just a few minutes of you writing down what are some challenges or some good sleep habits that you have, sharing and a commitment to what you might be doing in the next few weeks to really help improve your sleep. We've got a couple of videos which we hope will help your understanding of some of the technical, I guess, complexities about sleep, and the tips and trick sheets and the videos will be shared via email early next week. So just to start the conversation and to get you thinking, here's some of the elements that we'll be talking about that might apply to you. So if you can raise your hand, if anyone is working in shift work, because that has an impact. You have infants or newborn babies in your house. You live with teenagers. We love them, but they are challenging. Want to know about more sleep as we age. Anyone thinking that stress might be a factor affecting sleep. And also, we're going to be talking about dreams and nightmares. So these are some of the things that we're going to be weaving through. And if it's a particular interest to you, hopefully we'll be able to value add. So we're going to be asking for our first audience feedback. No one's going to be spotlighted as such if you're not comfortable, but we'd really like to know what everyone who's dialed in today, what do you think? Why is sleep important to you?
Hello, it's Marion here.
Hi.
Sleep's important because you just need to function at the top of your game every day, and you just can't do that with lack of sleep.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's for that energy, that consistency, and that recharging your batteries. Anyone else can think of why sleep is important? May sound like a basic question, but it performs so many different functions.
Hello, it's Margaret here. I was thinking as far as sleep goes, it's it is a good way of switching off from one day and tuning into the new day as you wake up, rather than a continual 24/7 on the same track.
Absolutely, that's sort of clearing the decks, realigning your brain, your mind to have that refreshed start to the day. Anyone else?
Yeah, there's been a couple of points you put in the chat here, Linda. Maggie says reducing screen time for 12 years plus through secondary school. Linda mentioned for your body to heal, and Debbie has mentioned for health.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's just a really good sort of cherry picking from everyone's general knowledge. So essentially, as a wrap up, healthy sleep plays a really important role in functioning of our physical, mental, and I'd also add social health. The purpose of sleep allows our body to recover, heal, and restore. It helps support new learnings in our brain's memory, and those really important neural or nerve connections in our brain are strengthened and help us go about our lives and perform it at our best and our optimal. During our sleep, neurochemicals or chemicals within our brain burn off toxic stress, which means our brain function is cleansed, repaired while we sleep. And really good restorative sleep is linked to maintaining a functioning immune system. So it prevents and reduces infections, colds, viruses, etc., prevention of heart disease, diabetes, stroke, mood disorders. It helps us manage stress and regulate our emotions. And I'll probably just add here, the research that Robin has done has been based on best practice guidelines, predominantly from Australia, and we'll be putting some resources up. But just to highlight that this information is based on clinical research and best practice guidelines. So was there anything there that perhaps has come as a bit of a surprise or confirmation to anyone in the audience?
Can I just say I work with several people. I'm a mental health social worker, and I'd expand mood disorders to say that you could also include people with post-traumatic stress disorder. People have got anxiety, people with eating disorders, disordered eating. There are a whole range of conditions behind the words mood disorders that typify someone who's having trouble sleeping. It's almost like one equals the other.
Yeah, definitely. And we've got this really good chicken and egg kind of drawing or diagram a little bit later to explain that. So yes. So now we're going to have a look at why sleep is important. So there is a common misperception that when we go to sleep, it's one lengthy period. We all shut down. We have a period of almost unconsciousness, and then we wake up. And I think Hollywood and the movies have got a lot to answer for that. But in fact, sleep is a really active state. While we're able to sleep, our mind and our body are taking care of so many different functions. So particularly over the last 60 years, scientists have discovered that our brains are really active when we sleep. And it's a natural part of our sleep cycle to have times where we are awake during the night, if you like. So let's have a look. We have a video next on what is considered normal. And we'll start to look at how sleep actually works and what is behind.
Every night you probably get into bed, wind down, close your eyes, and that's it. And then you wake up and it's a new day. But what happened during those 8 hours? Did your body and brain shut off? Or is there something more going on? How does sleep work? Hi, I'm Faith from Sleep Foundation. It's easy to think that when we fall asleep, we're slipping into a uniform state of passive rest and sedation. But sleep isn't just one thing. It's actually a multifaceted and very active process broken up into 4 stages, each with their own goals and objectives. First, there is that hazy period right when you start to fall asleep, and you don't really know the difference between being awake and being asleep. This is called N1 sleep, and it lasts anywhere from 1 to 5 minutes. Next, you enter the N2 phase. This is where your brain activity slows
down along with your heartbeat and respiratory rate.
This stage can be as short as 10 minutes, but as long as an hour. The next stage is called N3, also known as deep sleep. The brain activity during this period has a pattern known as delta waves, and this stage is critical to restoring your body and mind. This delta wave activity processes your memories and experiences from the day, while your body releases growth hormone to repair muscle tissue, regrow bone cells, and strengthen the immune system. Finally, you enter N4, the famous rapid eye movement or REM sleep. During this stage, your brain is almost as active as it is when awake. There is evidence that REM sleep contributes to insightful thinking, creativity, and memory. This is also the stage of sleep when you have the most vivid dreams. But dreams are more than just a series of surreal images. They serve as kind of a mental housekeeping to clean up partial or unnecessary information. These 4 stages repeat in about 90-minute increments throughout the night. Depending on how long you sleep, your body may go through this cycle 5 to 6 times in an evening. This complex and multi-stage cycle is known as your sleep architecture, and it's the basic structural organization of sleep. So look, it's easy to think you're just resting when you fall asleep, but there's so much more going on, as complex processes are at work, restoring your body, cleaning out your brain, and preparing you for the day ahead. Thanks for watching, everyone. Sleep well.
Okay, so now we have the slide again reinforcing what the video has talked about, where there are sleep cycles. So on the graph horizontally, we've got our hours of sleep from 1 to 8. Vertically, we've got our stages of sleep, those building blocks. And the red is the REM, the rapid eye movement sleep. So as we go through our sleep stages, the period of REM sleep is increased, that restorative, abstract thinking, dreaming. So if you can imagine, if you're only sleeping 4 to 6 hours a night, you're really missing out on this very important component of your sleep. So just to summarize what's on the left-hand side, sleep consists of cycles alternating between light and deep sleep, lasting for around about 90 minutes each. People generally have around 5 to 6 cycles throughout their nightly sleep, more deep sleep at the start and then the lighter REM sleep. And it's really important, awakenings are a normal part of the sleep period, because I think there's often a perception that you have to stay asleep for the whole time. And if you are waking up during the night, and I'll talk about the healthy ways of waking up, if you like, it's part of normality. Around about up to a few minutes to up to 20 minutes. So if you're waking up for more than 20 minutes at a time, around about 15, 20 minutes, then you need to consider how you go about getting back to sleep. Some of us will just lie and sleep, and we have the habit sleep will overtake us. But it is actually recommended that if you are waking up for 20 minutes, say from 1 till 1:30 in the morning, that you actually get up and get out of bed and start some sort of a calming routine, whether it's making a warm cup of tea, not coffee, but or a glass of milk, putting some quiet music on, doing some deep breathing, but to be able to help that sleep cycle start again. So again, it's important that waking up during the sleep cycles is normal, but if it's longer than, so going to the bathroom, perhaps getting up, moving the dog off the bed or whatever it is, but it's that longer breaks that you need to be aware of to look at either reinstating some new patterns or having conversations with your healthcare professional. So has anyone got a bedtime routine that if they do wake up during the night, they perhaps have a cup of tea or something like that?
It's Marion here. I often have
Hi, Marion.
a cup of tea. I have lemon and ginger tea, and I might do a few
Wonderful.
Little Sudoku puzzles, and that seems to it
Knock it on
seems
the head.
to settle the brain a bit, and I can usually go back to sleep.
Yeah. And I see in the chat from Debbie, end up just, oops, it's gone from me, tossing and turning. I can't quite see it. End up tossing and turning and getting annoyed because I can't sleep. Absolutely. So in that case, again, just reviewing what's going to be working for you is to go, okay, I can spend the next half an hour or so tossing and turning, or I can actually get up and put some different routines, and just accept in your mind that yes, waking up for short periods of time is the norm. So when we're talking about changing habits for all of us, because we are creatures of habits, whether it's changing sleep or giving up chocolate or whatever, it takes some weeks before the habits actually become ingrained, and we'll talk about that a bit later. Some people are saying reading or listening to podcasts. Absolutely, as long as we're not sort of heavy metal and screaming podcasts. Washing some dishes, quite boring. Absolutely. I find if I turn on an audio book and listen to some very soothing conversation, I'm out. So it's really whatever is going to allow you, when we look at those sleep cycles, to get back into that and have a really restful, peaceful sleep. So what does unhealthy sleep look like? And I love this image because honestly, some mornings when we don't have a good sleep, we often look in the mirror and pretty much that's it. So we all have poor sleep from time to time. So periods of great stress, etc. And the odd night sleeping is not really going to be a major problem. We might lie awake, overanalyzing things. We might wake up repeatedly, but if it's over a long period of time, in other words, many weeks in duration, or for some people, even many months, then we really need to start thinking about getting some assistance. But identifying what unhealthy sleep looks like is a really important step. So I'd like to throw it out to the room again or on the chat. What does unhealthy sleep look like to you?
And Linda, for me, I'm finding the hot weather when the nighttime temperature doesn't drop down makes a really restless night. So I've gone in and invested in a big slow fan, which has made such a difference. Yeah, hot nights is one for me. Yeah.
And that's really interesting, Jess, because we will be talking about the body clock or the circadian rhythm. And one of the things that happens with the circadian rhythm, which is a 24-hour clock, is as part of us, without knowing, our body is preparing us for sleep each evening. And one of the things our body does is start reducing our temperature. So it makes perfect sense, Jess, that when it's hot, you don't sleep well. So, yeah. We've got a couple of comments. See if I can.
Can you open them, Linda, or do you want me to go through?
Yeah, I can actually. Constantly waking up and feeling exhausted in the morning. Absolutely. And so, Bron, now that you understand that waking up is part of normal, then you can start just quietly in your own time reviewing what that waking up actually looks like. Is it more than 20 minutes? Are you waking up sort of less than that? And then recognizing the patterns. And that's, again, changing your habits. Clumsiness in the morning when finally getting out of bed. Oh gosh, Jenny, that sounds terrible. But yeah, that might be, and you might not be aware that you might not be sleeping well. And getting up early, you might still be, perhaps a slower wake up routine might be. But once you acknowledge it and you recognise it, menopause, insomnia, hot flushes, again, really challenging. We do talk briefly about hormones, but again, those hot flushes when your body optimum state for sleep is to cool you down. Resulting in a moody person and an unproductive day, absolutely. Grumpy with no sleep, yes. So this is just a summary of what unhealthy sleep looks like. Not sleeping for long enough, struggling to fall asleep, waking up constantly through the night, unrefreshed sleep, waking up is like, oh gosh, I haven't slept well. And occasional nights of disrupted sleep common, unlikely to have significant health impacts, but over that long period of time, it's really important to acknowledge that sleep is so important to so many of our systems. Okay, so let's have a look at the next one. And now we're getting into more sort of the technical or clinical side of what sleep actually is. So there's two key elements or factors to directly impact how our body feels and our need of sleep. One of them are the sleep-wake cycles or homeostasis. So in other words, the longer you're awake, the more tired you feel and you have increased pressure to sleep. And the second one is circadian rhythm. Now, circadian is a Latin term from circadium, which is around the day. So many years ago, researchers recognised that there was this 24-hour cycle linked to sleep. It's part of our biological clock. It tells us when to wake up, when to sleep, when we're hot, cold, etc. It encourages wakefulness during the day and sleepiness at night, but it critically relies on the exposure to light. And that's something that you may not be aware of, but it's something that we can very much influence. So the next slide is a video, and it starts introducing us to this really important element, the circadian rhythm.
Today we're going to explore circadian rhythms, the natural process our brains use to regulate our sleep-wake cycle throughout the day. This biological process is constantly moving to and fro. It's a great reminder of an idea so important to mindfulness, impermanence. That is, that everything is changing in our minds, our bodies, and the world around us. The word circadian comes from two Latin words, circa, which means about, and dies, which means day. Animals and plants have naturally occurring rhythms that recur every 24 hours. some of which are influenced by light and dark. But let's focus on us humans. Our eyes have adapted to using light. Bright light and dim light, multicolored light and monochromatic light. Our eyes are connected via the optic nerve to the back of the brain. Here, a tiny region is responsible for controlling the circadian rhythms. It's essentially a master clock, which, based on the light signals it receives, regulates the production of a variety of hormones affecting sleep, body temperature, and other key bodily functions. Say we're going out camping, a weekend journey with just natural light for our brain to experience. During the day, the sun's light is taken in through the retina, and a signal tells our brains, specifically the pineal gland, not to produce melatonin, the hormone that makes us sleepy. But when the sun sets, there's nothing but the distant twinkling starlight to hit our eyes. Now the opposite signal is sent. Begin the melatonin production, and as a result, we start to get drowsy. In the darkness, we soon fall asleep. When the sun starts to rise bright and early, the light hitting the eyelids illuminates the back of the eye, which sends a message to the brain's clock saying we need a halt in the melatonin production, and the pineal gland makes no more. As the effect of melatonin starts to wane, we wake up ready to start our day. With light pouring into our eyeballs, we stay wide awake, ready to enjoy another great day of activity. As you go about your day, take comfort in the biological cycles in continuous motion, which, just like life, are changing from one moment to the next.
Thanks, John. It's very peaceful, that video. So just wanting to ask, has the circadian rhythm and the impact of light come as a new element to many of you on the meeting today, in the audience? Yeah. And what I find really exciting about this is that we can influence this so much. Doesn't matter what age we are, what stage of life we are, we can genuinely tap into the body's need to have light as part of our circadian rhythm and create really healthy habits and pathways. Just in the chat, Maggie's saying she started leaving the phone out of the bedroom at night and reading for a few minutes or however long it takes, and leaving that phone out, and we'll talk about it a little bit more, is removing the artificial light as our circadian rhythm or our body clock moves through. So we're just on the next slide now, and there was a mention of melatonin. So melatonin is a brain-produced hormone or chemical in response to light, and it's critically important to this circadian rhythm or our body clock. In fact, you can actually buy or have prescribed artificial melatonin as one of the options for assisting your sleep. But it's a key element of this circadian rhythm, and it's highly sensitive to light. So if you can imagine, if you are a shift worker, you're sleeping during the day, or perhaps in sometimes you're leaving when it's still dark, working in an office, coming home when it's dark, all these small incremental phases or activities in our life can influence melatonin. Melatonin levels rise about 2 hours before you go to sleep, so probably 8 o'clock, something like that, to help activate pushing us into sleep. By absorbing daylight shortly after waking up, and again in the evening, because the light is quite a high intensity as we wake up, and then it starts to filter as we're in the evening, it's really important to expose our eyes and those linkages to the brain and the production of melatonin to the bright light of the morning and the filtered dimming light in the evening to really help and assist that body clock. So we talked about melatonin. It does play a critical, important role in our sleep. It's highly sensitive to light, and once we open our eyes, our body clock naturally sets for sleep around about 16 hours later. So really it's doing all the work for us. And what we have to do is just to really help that circadian rhythm so that you can sleep and sleep well. So there are other factors that this circadian rhythm. So here's our circadian rhythm friend, just presented in a different way. So we have midnight at the top, midday down the bottom, 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. So if we look at midnight, we're fast asleep, about 8 to 10 o'clock, something like that, our melatonin production starts and it kicks along, nice deep sleep, restorative sleep, our REM sleep, rapid eye movement sleep, wake up about 6 or 7. And once we wake up and we get the light coming in behind our eyes, etc., melatonin production stops, but it also sets off that timeline about 16 hours later for us to start being prepared for the next sleep cycle. So in the morning, we're at our highest alert, best coordinated. And so what we're wanting to do in the later afternoon and early evening is reduce the stimulus. Dim those lights. So instead of having a house full of bright lights, reducing the light to lamps perhaps, limiting caffeine, and we'll talk about this a little bit later, caffeine, cigarettes, alcohol. Alcohol has an interesting way of perhaps masking our healthy sleep patterns. Definitely screen time. So Jenny's popped in the chat, screen time. Absolutely, Facebook, social media, doing your reports, phones, etc. Really allowing our bodies from the day that we are born to the day that we die, we have this inbuilt circadian rhythm to really help create these very healthy sleep patterns. So what influences? Our body clock is driven by the sleep-wake cycles, circadian rhythm, relies on temperature and light, and the role of melatonin production. Next slide, please, Jo. So how much sleep is enough? And these are averages based on research. So adult averages 6 to 8 hours, sometimes moving on to 9. I've seen some recent TED Talks about the reality is we really need 8 to 9 hours effectively, but consistently. So not just stacking it on the weekend, but that consistent sleep over 7 days. Our wonderful teenagers, adolescents, 9 to 11 hours. And what we know is that parents are often frustrated with these very heavy sleeping teenagers. However, research advises that their growing bodies and hormones benefit from additional sleep, and also the sleep cycle of adolescence is often delayed. So you find sometimes there are some schools that are actually starting their school day later for senior students to cater for their need for extra sleep to function well. So children, 9 to 11 hours. Infants, we know that they sleep a lot or not a lot, but infants are known for sleeping in very short cycles and waking, of course, at extremely inconvenient times. And older adults, and older possibly 70, I've yet to be able to find sort of a line in the sand, but are common to have shorter cycles and fragmented sleep. So let's have a look at older adults as one element of as we age, our sleep needs change. So older adults sleep between 6 to 9 hours a day, but not all the time. So 4 in 10 adults have about a 30-minute daily nap. We've all heard of the nana nap, I hope, nana nap, papa nap, etc. Those who are 80 and over will often nap for an hour a day, but it might also take about 30 minutes for them to fall asleep. Sleep patterns as we age are lighter, so sleeping lighter, wake often, and finding a less deep, refreshing sleep. So now we've seen the circadian rhythm. If you are having half an hour or an hour sleep consistently during that 24 hours, it will impact. So again, it's about recognising what's actually happening and what we can influence. So why is it that older adults have challenges? Our sleep patterns change as we age. We wake earlier. A whole range of different hormones are released earlier in the day. Less melatonin production, and we know how important that is. And naps during the day. Nana naps, papa naps, which may reduce the need for sleep at night. And also, sometimes chronic conditions start increasing as we age. And so pain medications, general medications, arthritis medications, or if there are a chronic illness, even asthma medications, etc. If you're uncomfortable, you're in pain and you're having medications, can certainly influence the quality of your sleep. Next slide, please. So just going to ask the audience, what situations or times in our lives might actually impact our sleep? So from the cradle to the grave, so to speak, what times, situations might actually impact our sleep? And while we're thinking, I'm just looking at a comment from Shari. How does temperature impact the circadian rhythm? It does impact the circadian rhythm. Our circadian rhythm in the evenings is wanting to cool down. So, for example, if you're used to having a very hot shower in the evening, try lowering the temperature of that shower. Or if you like your hot shower, have a really nice cool glass of water before you go in for that shower. You might be used to rugging up, perhaps try some lighter blankets, etc., etc. But temperature, we need to be aware, and I was speaking about Jess really struggles when it's hot. So it all plays into that peaceful, restful sleep and supporting the circadian rhythm. So yeah, just going back to what situations or times in our lives might impact our sleep. Teenagers keeping
Linda,
awake.
it's Shari here.
Hi.
I know in my life where my husband was very ill with COVID, like quite critically, and I couldn't sleep at all during that time. Oh, I could sleep, but I'd wake up and I couldn't go back to sleep, and that was something that affected my sleep very badly.
Yeah, I think so. Your household, you know, who you are sleeping next to or in the same room, their sleeping patterns. We will talk about snoring and sleep apnea. I had a wonderful story with a bushfire impacted community in the Adelaide Hills, and I asked, a couple came in, they said they were from a farming background, and I asked the wife, you know, how are you sleeping? And she laughed, and she said, well, he sleeps really well, but his snoring is so loud, I sleep out in the caravan. So others are how you sleep, and it could also be worry. Does food impact sleep? Yes, it does. The fullness of how much you're eating, the lateness of how you're eating. If you're lying down, particularly if you're lying on your right side, which if your stomach is elevated, you may have some gastric upset. If you're having a spicy curry 9 o'clock at night, chances are, well, you're probably not going to get a good night's sleep. But let's just have a look. Next slide. Thanks, John. So just looking at some of these situations that impact our sleep. So mothers, parents with infants, women are twice as likely to experience insomnia, chronic pain, illness, mental health challenges, if you're anxious or really depressed, menopause, hormonal phases, shift work, multiple jobs. We've seen in recent years the casualisation of the workforce. So if you're going from 2 or 3 jobs, different hours, different times, all the stresses of impacting all that certainly would help. High stress, depression, anxiety, activity, a lot of activity or the lack of it, distressing events, and certainly this is one of the forums where we hear emergencies, disasters, life stresses can really impact your sleep. Daylight saving, that's something that knocks me for 6, as well as jet lag, but going from Perth to Sydney. So I don't know if anyone here is impacted by any of those, but these are just some of the events that can potentially impact your sleep. So shift work, just quickly talking, I don't know how many are on shifts. But if you look at that picture of that body clock, that circadian rhythm, having to plug in shifts, sleep, light, routine, what research tells us is it takes about 10 days for your body to adapt one way or the other. Now, back in the day when I was nursing, we would do 10 night shifts in a row. Whether they knew about this back then, I don't know. But now you hear people doing shift work for 2 nights off, 1 night off, 3 nights on, etc., etc. So shift work is really challenging. It leads to greater fatigue and also potentially micro sleeps, which are incredibly dangerous, particularly if you are on the road. So, yeah. And got a few comments in here. Not switching off, thinking about things. Absolutely, we'll be talking about clearing your mind. And napping. Yep, napping, fine every now and again, or perhaps when we're on holidays, but consistently is not great. So, the next slide, please, Jai. So just want to talk about stress and sleep. Stress, anxiety, depression, etc. Sleep is one of the first things to suffer when we're under stress. So if your stress is out of control, then it's likely to affect your sleep. And if you're not able to sleep, then you're probably feeling more stressed. So we've got a loop, and I'll show you a diagram at the moment. So when we, as Red Cross volunteers or staff, when we first start, we learn about psychosocial support and the stages people go through when they're stressed. So the immediacy after, say, a fire, very high on adrenaline, which is that fight or flight chemical, and it allows us to be very succinct, it's life-saving, but it impacts our sleep because our brain is very, very clear, and this can last for several months. And then we move on if our body is aware of being in prolonged stress. So we can see that prolonged stress when someone is rebuilding their home, going through a very, very long divorce, etc., etc. It's what we call a cortisol phase. So our body's aware of that we're still needing extra support because we are in that high state of alert or stress. And what cortisol does is it's for the long term, but it's exhausting. So the types of things we see in the cortisol phase is an exhaustion that doesn't allow you to think properly or remember properly, or if you're sleeping, it will be exhausted sleep or no sleep at all. So certainly when you're in a situation of emergency, disaster and high stress, those chemicals can impact as well. So managing stress and sleep helps you concentrate, maintain your composure, make good decisions and build resilience. So again, a bit of stress is good, but when it's going on for many, many weeks, we really need to consider reaching out to our support network. So which does come first? The relationship between mental health and sleep. So if you have impaired mental health, you have anxiety, depressed, worry, stress, etc., the chances are you're going to have disrupted sleep. Insomnia, which is that longevity of lack of sleep, as officially diagnosed, and problems falling or staying asleep. But disrupted sleep and insomnia can impact your mental health. So it's that chicken and egg. Which direction? The research hasn't actually fully defined that, but it's important to know that there is this loop. Disrupted sleep impacts your mental health impacts your sleep. So again, we need to look at what we can do to influence that cycle. So next slide, please, John. So what are the common sleeping problems in Australia? So research from Phoenix Society, from Sleep Association, has found that 4 in 10 Australians regularly experience inadequate sleep. Again, not an occasional night, but consistently. So if we are, and again, I'll use it in a recovery resilience sense, if we are part of a community or supporting a community of 1,000 people, that's, if I do my maths right, 400 people who are really impacted by sleep. And so your conversations at the post office, your ability to read important messaging for your health and wellbeing, community safety is really impacted. So as we know, disrupted sleep can take many forms: difficult getting to sleep, frequent waking, for longer than, 15, 20 minutes, waking really early and just not being able to get back to sleep. And some of the common causes which have been identified in Australia for sleep disorders are these three. So probably the first one is the most well-known, but anxiety, excessive worry, anxiety, stress, depression, etc. The second one is restless leg syndrome. So I don't know if anyone is open to, say, sharing whether they know someone or perhaps they do have restless leg syndrome. But what it actually is about 15% of people have this difficulty in keeping settled and keeping still. So it causes rapid movement of your arms and your legs, and it's really quite uncomfortable. Has anyone, I've got a few messages in the chat. Let's see, people are popping in and out. But it really is quite uncomfortable, and particularly even if you're not experiencing it, if you're sleeping in the same room, etc., with someone with restless leg syndrome, it is very uncomfortable. But there's ways to treat that. Again, looking at your stimulants, reducing the intake of caffeine, nicotine, alcohol, iron supplements, exercising, etc. And then we come down to obstructive sleep apnea. Now, I think most of us are aware of snoring. So particularly after a heavy meal or a few drinks, or particularly if we've got a little bit of extra weight, quite often we will hear sort of very deep snoring type breaths where our muscles and the structures around our airways are very much relaxed. And, as annoying as that can be, if it's very, very loud, it can potentially lead us down to a pathway which is called sleep apnea. So apnea is sort of the absence of effective breathing, respiration, etc., causing us to wake up. So the difference between snoring, which we all know is sort of that rhythmic, loud noise. I'm not going to try it because I did the other day when I was doing an online presentation, and Teams and Zoom don't pick up snoring noises, so I'm not going to try it again. And apnea is quite concerning. It sounds as though the person is almost choking. There's usually some very heavy snoring breaths, and then there's usually a stop which can last up to 2 minutes. It's almost like holding your breath, but the structures and the rigidity and support around your airways and air, nose, mouth, etc., is causing a blockage. And if you can imagine holding your breath for 2 minutes now, it's really uncomfortable. But imagine doing that when you're asleep. And this can occur many, many, many times a night. And what happens is with obstructive apnea, it tends to be men, and you stop breathing, or you eventually, just stop. Your body's recognizing that you're not getting enough oxygen, so your heart rate increases, potentially your blood pressure increases, and it puts you at a real risk of a life-threatening episode. So what can we do once we've recognised that we have a problem with sleep apnea? And we'll talk about some studies. So to have it formally diagnosed, absolutely, but the treatment is often weight loss, really looking at your diet, exercise, etc., but also potentially wearing a pressurised mask, which is called CPAP, which is continuous positive airway pressure. So your mask is providing pressure, which is opening up your airways, and you are actually able to get a really good night's safe sleep. So the Sleep Health Foundation website has got a whole lot of information about sleep apnea, but it is important to talk about. Okay, so let's now talk about dreams and nightmares. So nightmares and dreams impact up to 50% of children, up to 10% of adults, but particularly due to a traumatic event or long periods of disruptive sleep. And I'll just add, for me, I will have really vivid nightmares if somehow I wrap myself up in blankets and I overheat, it's like I'm in a virtual reality dream. It's just so intense. So again, dreams and nightmares can be triggered by a lot, but they can be really, really frightening. But there are so many tips and tools about how you as adults can reduce your severity of nightmares, but also children. And reassurance is one of the keys. There's some amazing books and tools to help and support children with gaining confidence with managing with those fears. Counselling, absolutely, again, whether it's cognitive behavioural therapy, a whole range of image-based therapy where you have conversations with the children about, well, instead of saying there's a giant bear coming in, well, the bear's coloured pink and wearing a silly hat and wearing roller skates. So if they have a repetitive dream, they're able to manage it much better. And very effective options for adults and children. One is called a gratitude exercise, and I can really recommend this. So each night before you go to bed, pen to paper, pencil to paper is ideal because it helps change your ability for abstract thinking. And just writing down 3 things that you have been grateful for that day. Could be a really nice lunch, could be a great conversation, could be that you actually managed to clean your kitchen, whatever it is. That, again, helps start relaxing, clearing the mind and creating an opening. And if you do that consistently, very, very positive outcome. You can also look at a sleep diary. And this is really helpful. Each night, what was your routine going up to bed? And also when you wake up, how did you sleep, etc., etc. So there's some really good tips about having that peaceful, restful sleep, and that includes reducing the potential anxiety and the triggers for nightmares and dreams. So does anyone have challenges with nightmares and dreams? Apart from me wrapped up in my blankets. Now I'm just looking at some of the chat. Sorry, I haven't picked this up. Maggie, restless legs and leg cramps. Went to a physio, gave exercises for strength. Wonderful. That's excellent. And again, something that is really, really uncomfortable, but you reached out, you got some help, put it in place, really good new habits, and you've been able to benefit from that. So the next slide is just a bit of a point. So the next few slides, if you haven't already, pen and paper, pencil and paper, or if you're more comfortable, popping something in a document. But this one is really about a self check-in. So these are questions I'd like to pose to yourselves. Are you taking more than 30 minutes to fall asleep? If you wake up at night, do you have trouble getting back to sleep? Are you finding it hard to wake up in the morning, that exhaustedness when you wake up? Do you wake up tired even after a full night's sleep? How is your mood when you wake up? Are you grumpy? Are you refreshed? Are you neutral? And do you struggle with concentration throughout the day? So if any of these scenarios are familiar to you and you experience them over an extended period of time, then it's a really good opportunity for self-reflection and potentially reaching out for some help. And that help could be online. There's some amazing online tools, there's apps, but some people like just a gentle conversation. So this is really that self-check-in that for yourself or your family members, how are you actually tracking with your sleep? Next slide, please, Jai. So things to avoid, these are often really enjoyable, which also makes it really difficult to let go. I'm just looking in the chat. Ilma's saying understanding your issues for dreams. Bron is saying she's very vivid dreams, can often continue a dream after waking, gosh, and then going back to sleep. Yeah, so some challenges there. But just to confirm, there is so much support and help available. But try the gratitude diary, try the sort of settling down, and also making your bed a bedroom a sanctuary. How many of us have boxes and books and goodness knows what, and really saying to yourself, right, my bedroom where I sleep is actually going to be a sanctuary. So as you enter in, you're starting that process and thinking of that circadian rhythm. What can we do to help that? Okay, so things to avoid. Caffeine, nicotine. So it's basically reducing the stimuli to help that relaxation and circadian rhythm. So alcohol is really interesting. It may help you get to sleep. And we're not wowsers, we're saying you shouldn't drink at all, but it's just being aware. But alcohol has the ability to disrupt your sleeping patterns. And if we go back to that graph with the REM sleep, etc., and it can really impact sleep problems like snoring, ultimately sleep apnea. And the recommendations, which I have to say are a little difficult, is that alcohol should be avoided 4 hours before bedtime. So that's a bit of a challenge, because if you look at, if we go out for a nice social dinner, chances are we're drinking much closer, but it's just reviewing. So in regards to the caffeine and the stimulants, no caffeine, no coffee, cola drinks, energy drinks, etc. After 3 p.m. because the stimulating effects of caffeine can carry on up to 7 hours after our coffee. So let's have a look at the chat. Andrew's saying that's why I've given up before my sport, because I found it too hard. I was tired to keep up. Gosh, yeah, the tiredness, absolutely. Find it hard in the afternoons not to sleep because I can't function to cook dinner. Again, recognizing that and having some considerations. Okay, when am I waking up? Am I going out to get, and I found that I'm now making sure I go out for at least 5 minutes, if not 10, to get that morning light to start that circadian rhythm. Looking at, again, the stimulants, etc., to see if you can make a real difference to your sleeping. Chocolate, the good old Jenny, giving that up. Sugar hit before bed. Well, that might be a good thing or not a good thing, but yes, perhaps 6 o'clock chocolate. I'm not sure. But again, we need to spoil ourselves without going overboard. Okay, so some of the other things, again, we've talked about this. Be careful with naps. Nana naps are wonderful, but if you're having a nana nap at 5 o'clock and going to 6, chances are you're not going to have a really great sleep. Limit the screen time, and this is really important for any age. We're now sort of set up to watch devices in our rooms. Young people are watching more and more, but it is perhaps recognising we can look at devices, screen time in a different way now that we know about the circadian rhythm and the influence of light. And staying in bed, yeah, we really need to look at possibly changing some habits there for making sure that your bedtime, that you're not spending hours and hours out throughout the day. Doing activities that are really exposing you to healthy light, but exposing you to unhealthy light as you're coming into your sleep cycle is to be avoided. So do any of these sort of strike a chord with some of you? And I'm just looking at Andrew's copy. Magnesium before bed. To be honest, I don't have that information. It might be worth talking to your pharmacist about the role of magnesium and either restless legs or sleep. So, but that's a good point. Vitamins, diet can certainly impact your sleep. So, things to avoid. Alrighty. So, has anyone got anything else to add that what they might avoid that potentially is causing them to, or someone they know, not to sleep well? Could be as simple as hot showers, not actually having a routine for sleep. No tea before bed, absolutely. Doing complex computing, says Jenny. Yes. Anyone who is in front of a spreadsheet in the late hours of the day probably is not going to have you won't be counting sheep, you'll be counting numbers as they go on events. Just looking at the chat, walking in the morning and getting some, more sun. Absolutely. Once you're sort of really aware of the role of sun and light, and particularly the evening dusk light, it really is potentially life-changing. You can really help manage that. And again, keeping that diary over time to see if it's improving.
I think Margaret had something to say.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Jai and Linda, getting back to reading and implements, and I found that turning a paper page on a real book, it turns me back into like the 5-minute wonder, and it's quite good putting you to sleep. But to read it, I gave up reading online books on the phone and that, because it was sort of like, wow, you know, I'm still awake and it's the light, but nothing works better than turning a paper page over.
Absolutely.
Unless it's a 100-page document, like you said, which is not good bedtime reading, like your spreadsheet, but it still works wonders.
Absolutely. And, you know, recognising that, and for me, books, but I also, there's some amazing free audiobook downloads, and I find once I start hearing that calm, methodic voice of someone reading out loud a book or a story, I'm gone. So it's recognising whatever it is, and that pen to paper, reading a book, absolutely, yeah. Is there any other? Oh, here we go, another message. Problem is shutting off from stress of work. My mind doesn't shut off. Have been trying to listen to calming music, but doesn't always work. Yeah. So when we have challenges with work or life, as we all do, there are times when we're going to have the odd nights where you know things just aren't going well, and that's probably normal. But actually recognising, going, okay, how can I shut my mind off from work? And then reaching out to, for example, Phoenix or Sleep Australia, and really starting to look at what is going to help you relax. And it could be, are you walking the dog or going around for a walk in that evening dim light to help that the filters for the circadian rhythm to start pushing us to that sleep cycle? Have you got a kind of a sleep diary, or are you having that sneaky coffee on the way home at 5 or 6 o'clock and you're not actually realising it? So I think there's a lot of awareness into this whole process for improving sleep, and it doesn't have to be hard. So sort of make it fun for yourself to go, okay, I'm going to have a really great night's sleep. And oftentimes it's like, oh my gosh, I'm not going to sleep tonight and I've got a deadline, and et cetera, et cetera. So be actually able to help calm your mind, calm your brain, is a really great way of putting in. But it is going to have to be very personal. Sorry, Jess, I can see your hand up.
Yeah, Linda, look, I've got a friend who suggested a trick that she uses. She was going through a stressful time, and she shared this with me, and it was really helpful. So I said to her, when I can't sleep, you know, I often think about the different things I've done during the day and the week and the month and so on. And she said, no, that's way too hard. What you want to do is you want to count the number of drawers that you open in the house. So cupboards, windows, anything that you open and close. And you've got to go around. You start at one spot and you go right around the whole house, counting every single one. And when you get to the end, you just keep going. And she said, by the end, your mind starts to get so bored that you go to sleep. And it's a great one. It really works. It gets to the point where I just start to think, okay, brain, it's time to count all the drawers, and before time, you know, any time's gone, I'm asleep.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Yes, and when I was sharing the sleep workshop with colleagues in the migrant support program, I was just trying to get images and conversations about what how people from other countries, and I had counting sheep, and they said, no, we don't count sheep, we count stars. So I found out that counting sheep, that old image of counting sheep, is actually Australian. So it's really whatever it is. And I think, you know, the drawers opening and shutting certainly put me to sleep. Giles put just a query in the chat. Sorry, just trying to. Multi-hour meditation.
Yes, on YouTube, there's these videos that meditation videos that go for multiple hours. Like some go for 3 hours, 4 hours, up to 8 hours, and they just play what they say is a frequency. So it's just ongoing sound that goes for pretty much the whole video. It's usually a dark screen, but I've often wondered whether they're actually placebo, whether they're like.
Yeah, look, in anything that I don't know specifically about those, but I look at, so for example, ABC, I think most of us can access ABC. They have recordings of, you know, the waves coming in, and that's for quite some time, or a forest, or you know, and you can just leave it gently. Like SBS has a chill radio station, sort of very gentle, methodic, relaxing music. And again, if that strikes a chord with you and allows you to relax, to be able to think about things that you're grateful for, to be able to put yourself in a really good space so that you're in that cool, calm environment, would be a bonus. But I don't specifically know about those. Okay, so we're just going to, next slide, please. Now, I'm hoping that I can read these. We've put together a list of tips and tricks about how you can get to a good night's sleep, as in consistent. So number one is being consistent. So having, if possible, a regular bedtime. What I've been hearing, and there's some amazing TED Talks for those who are comfortable with TED Talks. Sleep science is all the rage about having that consistency over your 7-day week, not just saving up your sleep for the weekend, but getting that consistent sleep each night for the benefit of your mind and your body. So number two, have a wind down routine. So we've talked about getting out and getting that filtered light in the dusk, lowering the light in our homes, cooling our temperatures. Instead of that hot shower, just have it a little bit slower, having a nice cup of lemon and honey, putting the devices aside. So have something that's going to strike a chord with you. Setting aside technology is number three. Absolutely. There's always a place for technology, but acknowledging and having that circadian rhythm in our minds of the impact of that light that has on us. Making your bedroom a sleep sanctuary. I'm a big fan of this. Really, you know, self-reflection. What does your bedroom look like? Might be a sanctuary as is, but if it isn't, part of the process is to create this lovely, relaxing environment for you. And that can include, obviously, lamps, some beautiful fragrances, having some calm music playing, fresh sheets, all those sort of things. If you can't sleep after about 20 minutes or so, up you get, and just have some sort of a routine instead of spending hours and hours tossing and turning. Limit your caffeine, nicotine, and alcohol. Not being a wowser, but it is really important, again, now that we understand and we know the circadian rhythm and how important that sort of latter part of the day is, of managing that. Avoiding long nana naps or papa naps during the day, specifically after 3 p.m. Yeah, as you can see, when you've got that circadian rhythm, it really potentially can impact that. Managing your melatonin, that internal body clock and that sensitivity to light. So making the time to take the time, as I now do, to go out and have my coffee or tea or whatever it is outside, exposing my eyes to the light so that we can help that production of melatonin. And practicing relaxation. So relaxation, there are a whole range of tools, and we'll be sharing the sites for Sleep Australia, Phoenix, etc., etc. There's a whole lot of mindfulness, relaxation tools that if you've never really embraced, give it a try over a month period if you can. It's usually only about 5 or 10 minutes, and it might really make a difference in how you're able to wind down and really acknowledge that, okay, this is part of my sleep hygiene. Okay, next. Has anyone got any comments about those 10 top tips? Oh, we've got some messages. Debbie, often read in bed during the night when I can't sleep. Would it be better to get out of bed and do that in the lounge room? I think you're just going to have to test that out. If you're reading for hours, then possibly yes, step away, particularly if the room is coolish. Just say, look, I'm just going to read 3 pages and go back in. Just play around with it a little bit and see how you go. Let's have a look. Any more comments? Sorry, just best breathing exercise for sleep. Wonderful. Thanks, Jenny. So sleep foundation. Best breathing exercises for sleep. That's a wonderful tip. And it's going to be like everything in life. It's not a one-stop shop, or it's not suitable for everyone. So you'll need to find your space. For me, it's listening to an audio book. I'm gone. For others, it's meditation, etc. Let's just have a look at the chat again. I think that's about it. Okay. The next slide. Okay, so what happens if we can't, if all these wonderful good habits don't actually work? So this gentleman here is actually having a sleep study. So when we listen to the video, and I showed that graph after that hypnograph, this is where you connect it up with electrodes monitoring your sleep, and you actually go to sleep. Now you can get a referral from your GP. There are sleep clinics, public and private, if you feel that you've tried your healthy options and they're not working for you, because it really is important, if you're at that point, that your sleep over a whole night or a couple of nights is actually monitored, so there can be a proper clinical diagnosis. So if you feel that you have symptoms that you need advice, GP, or perhaps ring some of the organisations that might have phone support, some of the sleep groups. I'm not sure if they do, but so further investigation, sleep specialists, your sleep study, counselling, psychologists, psychiatrists, counsellors, etc., has been proved extremely helpful when it comes to sleep or the lack of it. So it's very much worth, and particularly if you're dealing with nightmares, etc. And medications, obviously based on medical referral. There's a whole range of medications through your pharmacist, but certainly looking at a variety of your tools that you can put in place yourself to help that routine, remembering that it takes a good month for a routine to kick in, and then looking at these options, and it might be ending up having a CPAP mask, etc. So has anyone actually had a sleep study, or know someone who's had a sleep study? It looks painful, but it actually isn't. Sorry, who was that?
Yeah, that was Jeff. I had a sleep study, and it was recommended that I get a CPAP machine, which I did, and I found that the CPAP machine disturbed my sleep way more than apnea ever did.
Well, if that was some years ago, Jeff, revisit it, because I think they've actually made them a little bit more silent. But yes, it's you're not getting oxygen as such, but it's a mechanical device pushing pressured air through a tube onto your face. And look, it's not a natural thing, but it's designed to give you more access, more settled airways. But yeah, I can understand it's yes, not great. Leanne's saying her son had a sleep study, and that's where they discovered he had restless legs. So there you go, the restless leg syndrome. Yes, which is not very comfortable at all. Hopefully he's got some relief for that.
Linda, I had a sleep study done, and
yes.
I was diagnosed with a temporomandibular joint dysfunction.
Ooh.
My mouth would fall open at night, and now I wear a mouth guard.
Wow. Are you sleeping better, Jenny?
Yes, but I've also given up alcohol.
Oh, double bonus. Yeah, it's amazing. And here we have just two very, very diverse, clinically proven reasons why two people aren't sleeping: restless leg and mouth mandibular dysfunction, or disconnection. Very complex is the sleep. I think, yeah. So now we're going to just spend the next little while looking at, sorry, John, could you pop the next slide on? So for some of you who've been able to print this out, that's wonderful. And normally if we were doing this face-to-face, we'd be handing this out. But for those who haven't, we're going to be asking you, and we've got a little bit of music to get your responses, but to look at what contributes to your sleep. And that could be what contributes to your really good sleep or your not so good sleep. So we're going to be looking at it in three ways. So if you've got pen and paper, we can jot down, or you can just think about it. So the first way is biological. What's contributing to your circadian rhythm? Are you getting enough light, your temperature, your melatonin? Perhaps you're not, and that's good to recognise that. The next thing is social. Are you doing shift work? Are you travelling across time zones? Have you got multiple jobs, or you're studying university? That sort of social type that's impacting your sleep. And the other is psychological, your habits and behaviours. Are you staying up with your devices? Are you having caffeine and alcohol late at night? Are you having those, we talked about not being able to wind down after work, those unhelpful thoughts. Oh gosh, I've got a busy day tomorrow, I've got to sleep. I can't sleep because I'm stressed about my busy day, etc. And we've got about 2 minutes of just some lovely music to help you consider what is actually impacting on your sleep. So the question was, what contributes to your sleep? So would anyone like to share? And ideally, if we can look at like biological, social and psychological, we don't have to. But what are some of the factors that contribute to your good sleep or lack of it? Margaret, yep.
One of the things I find is I actually have music going in the background 24/7, and I find that even when it's like going at night, I tried to convince my mother that when she lived on her own, but when I have that music going, it blocks out any unfamiliar or maybe suspicious background noises.
Yep.
I pay attention because I have two good dogs that will alert me anyway when I'm too relaxed. But and I have a feeling that that habit comes a bit from having lived in the city, and now that I'm back, I live in Mildura and St Rosie, but when I moved back to the quiet country living, I think it was a bit too quiet. But I still have my best night's sleeps when I go back to Melbourne to visit my kids and family, to be honest. Another good solution I found was paperback books in the last 6 months. After knocking the screen off, I've gone through so many books. It's unbelievable, and some very good ones too. And also, probably my favourite little toy is my Maltese Shih Tzu sleeps at the end of the bed, and I can hardly
Yes,
so
we love.
I have it there, and we're all happy. But that music, yes, I've got the comfort and I've got the music, and I'm not sure if the music is the habit of having lived in the city, but that keeps me going because I just focus on that. If I tend to think of something strange, and I'll pick up on the music. So
absolutely, and that's a really good hint, creating that environment that you know relaxes and settles you. Marion's saying stress, can't swish off at night. Well, hopefully today's session will help you be able to identify some of the ways that you can help use that circadian rhythm and what you can influence. And then with your stress, reaching out to some of the specialist sleep organisations who have recognised the importance of a good night's sleep and how to help and relax. Anyone else? So just getting, it's important to, this exercise is about really, sorry, Ange?
Oh, sorry, I was trying to put my hand up. I find exercise helps me. If I go for exercise during the day, that helps me sleep at night time,
good point.
And also I listen to, just on YouTube as well, the hypnosis, because that always puts me to sleep as well, because that just focuses on the step by step, just relaxing the whole body as well.
Definitely, there's these themes coming up about, exercise, relaxing, having, recognizing what calms you down. And I think behind it all now, we can start thinking that image of that circadian rhythm in our minds about how we can actually influence that and help others to influence that as well. So thank you for that. There's very complex factors as contributing to sleep, but it is important that now we're starting to identify what potentially we can influence. And that's what I find so exciting about researching about sleep, is that there's so much that we can do to have a positive impact. Okay, so Jai, we might go down to the little slide after, sorry, next one. Yep, great. So we're going to be doing a bit of a reflection exercise. So again, if you've got pen and paper, if you've been able to print off that sheet, but what I'd like to do, and we'll have a little bit more piano music, is that as we start wrapping up our presentation, we really would like to think about what you can acknowledge and put into practice from what we've heard today. So we're going to take a couple of minutes to write down on your worksheet or on your phone or on pen and paper, just two things you're going to try in the next week to set yourself up for better health, better sleep health, and ultimately better well-being. Just remembering that it takes up to about 30 days for new healthy habits to come into being. So what will you commit in doing in the next week to help you towards your target? 2 things is anyone about to commit to for the next week as to what you might do to help improve your sleep? Yes.
Yeah, hide my iPad. It's too easy just to keep looking at internet and YouTube, you know.
Yeah, putting one of those drawers that Jess is opening and shutting.
And
excellent. So that's acknowledging the light.
yes, exactly.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
I think also we should think about eating better as well, because there's foods that affect our moods and affect our, you know. So eat more appropriately for sleep. You find out what the best things are to apart from when you eat, what you eat as well, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Anyone else?
Yeah, I've got my trying to give up my phone and have that beside my bed and scrolling through before I go to bed. So that's going to be super hard.
Yeah, with you on that.
It's going to be so hard. And also, I'm going to aim to go for a walk in the mornings and walk my dog in the evenings. So, which will be a nice way to start and end the day as well.
Yeah. So again, recognition of that routine and recognition that now we know light and how we can influence that bright morning and that shutting down at dusk. Just looking at the chat from Judy, I recall visiting a winery and getting a flagon. This was a while ago. And when I said it was to help me sleep, the salesperson said, oh, sorry, just jumped. The salesperson said, I don't think it's going to help. My response, well, I might just feel better about being awake.
Judy.
Well done. Well done. Yeah. And look, you know, as I say, we're not wowsers saying you mustn't drink, but particularly, you know, if you're drinking, you know, I don't know how many glasses equate to it. Yes, you will probably sleep fairly quickly, but it does impact those cycles. Let's have a look at some of the other measures. Gratitude journal and more exercise. Absolutely. It just makes such a difference. Just jotting down again that pen to paper instead of perhaps scrolling through your phone. Have a lovely, I've bought myself a beautiful bound book, beautiful quality pages and a nice pen. And that is part of my treat, my special sanctuary routine. And it's just a blessing. John, I'm just having a bit of trouble scrolling.
Yeah, sure, no worries. So Marion mentioned getting more morning and evening light.
Perfect.
Bron, no coffee after 2 p.m, no screen time after 8 p.m. Di mentioned walking every day, need to do, and Shibachi Tai Chi exercises. Debbie said implementing that piano music, so relaxing. Sarah, making sleep a priority over than rather stealing sleep time to do things. I'm definitely guilty of that. Yeah, gratitude journey. Softer sheets. Jenny said softer sheets, hate rough sheets. And Jess said no brain work after 8 p.m.
8 p.m. exactly.
And
if we look back at these softer sheets, that's creating that sanctuary, that lovely sanctuary. The writing down, the pen to paper, that helps you sort of abstract thinking, you're relaxing, getting your light morning and after, exercising, which is so important to help that circadian rhythm, creating a rest time, slow down time. And that may be doing a Sudoku or, filing your nails or I'm not sure, whatever it is, but recognising that wind down time, acknowledging your heat, and that light. Excellent. And the gratitude journal, I would really encourage everyone, just for the month of February, every night, just 3 things, and they can be the most simple things, really does impact on your peaceful state of mind, helping in so many ways when you're looking at sleep. Okay, so can we go down to...
Can I just ask a bit more about that gratitude journal?
Yep.
Like, what is the just like a daily diary entry?
Oh, so sorry. So so just before you head off to sleep, pen to paper, pencil to paper, because there's a lot of research that the act of actually writing helps create, openness, consideration, relaxation, abstract sort of thinking, rather than popping it in on your phone. And just writing 3 things, very simple, that you're grateful for that day. And it could be a nice lunch, could be a great conversation, could be that you walked the dog, could be that you didn't burn dinner, could be that you took the time to put your gratitude down. Just simple thing. It could be grandiose. You could have done something very technical and very fancy, but it is that consistent. And what I found, it creates a habit, and then you find yourself after a few weeks actually looking back to all these entries and going, oh wow, I did this and this happened and da-da-da. So you're actually creating this sort of positive, feel-good thought patterns, hormones, etc. But when it comes to sleep, you are helping relax and settle your brain and your mind to set yourself for that relaxing sleep.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah.
And there's a lot of research into that. So all these things that we've been talking about today, you can put online, put circadian rhythm or light to help you sleep or gratitude journal before bedtime, all those things. But we will show you in a moment some of the resources, and Jai will be emailing out the list, those 10 tips, and then some resources where you are. And again, there's probably about 15 different links. Pick one that's right for you. It's just like if you go to counselling, the counsellor might not be right for you. Just pick one that you're drawn to, that's right for you. You can access at the right time, and then move from there. So if we can go down to the beautiful baby slide. So we're nearly at the end. Got just a couple more slides to go. So really this is about what we've learned. So we came in today almost 2 hours ago, and we learned about what normal sleep is. What does it actually look like? Why we need sleep? What are the benefits? Why does our body actually need it? We've also talked about what unhealthy sleep is. We looked at the mechanics or the biology behind it, that really important circadian rhythm, that body clock that stays with us from the time that we're little ones until the time that we depart the earth, every 24 hours, every day. And we also looked at how we can influence by acknowledging how we sleep well, when we don't sleep well, and also our partners or family members, etc. We looked at the importance and the influence we can have on that circadian rhythm, and just how very, very small changes, particularly if we can get it into a routine, can really make a difference. We did a couple of exercises identifying what impacts our sleep, our good healthy sleep habits or our not so good healthy sleep situations, and a bit of a reflective exercise as to what we can actually commit to in the next week or so that potentially could make a really impactful influence on our quality of sleep. So was there anything else anyone has learned from today? 1 or 2 points that you think that's really hit the mark, or I didn't know that, or I can help someone with my sleep? Does anyone like to share that?
I think for me, it's the big play on light. We all know about light and dark, and if it's too bright, you turn lights down. But to see that it's actually physical, scientific, and biological, it makes a heap of sense.
Yeah, and thank you. Yeah, to be honest, until I really started researching sleep, and you'll all become sleep research nuts, I guarantee it now, to actually understand the impact of light. Doesn't cost a cent. It's there every day. Unless we're in Alaska, it really does make a difference. So yes, that's a great point. Bronner said it's helped me understand sort of what is normal. Oh, that's normal to wake up through the night. Yeah, I've had a couple of comments like that, yes. And if we look back at that graph, So it's normal to get up and have a bathroom break or two, but if we're actually having that longer break, that's okay. Need to revisit this. But yeah, being awake for up to 20 minutes is normal. Stress if I didn't get back. I would stress if I didn't get back to sleep straight away. Yes. It's about being able to.
Just going to say that I think it's one thing that's come through is that we need to be mindful of everything we do during the day, because it all adds to, it's best, to what we eat, what we do, what we don't do. And if we establish it into our routines, then we'll start to sleep better. Like you say, you form habits after so many days, maybe just to work with a list and just have it stuck on your arm, I don't know,
Yeah, absolutely. And
don't have the list of what you need to do, because that can stress you out when you haven't done much of it, but you're still feeling good.
Yeah.
Don't keep the list too close to the forefront.
And it is, and what I find exciting about this is that, you can now go out in your community and just, ask that question that as recovery officers we've done so much, which is, how are you sleeping? You can start that conversation and influence your community, your family, your friends to say, oh, did you know about light and sleep? And, you'll drive them crazy, but we'll be sharing the message. Now, just looking in the chat, I also thought listening to podcasts, audiobooks probably wasn't good, but now I feel relaxed that it is okay. Yeah, absolutely. It is basically, if it's healthy, it's not doing you harm and it's making an impact on your sleep, absolutely. It could be audiobooks, it could be nice ocean music, or some of these 8-hour sort of white noise type recordings. Again, it's really about what is going to work for you. Yeah.
But more.
So just any. Sorry.
So, but the message is more listen than watch, because if you're watching a screen, that's negative.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Jai or Jess, did you want to add any things that perhaps that you've learned over your time here in your sleep workshops?
Oh, Linda, for me, I think I'm saying much the same as other people about it's okay to wake up a number of times during the night, and I won't worry so much about trying to get back to sleep again. Just kind of let it happen naturally. That's a great one. And I'd heard about the circadian rhythm, but it's great to actually see the diagrams and see how it all works. So that really stood out for me as well. That's good.
And I'm hoping that people, particularly if they're worried about waking up so often, can now actually settle that it's okay, and just monitor it in a more settled way. Jai, have you taken anything away from the sleep workshops you've attended?
Yeah, so certainly the light, like I'm still sleeping with it is a little aromatherapy, little steamer thing in the corner, but it does have a light on it. I can't stand the changing color light, but we tend to keep it on one color. But I might give it a crack without using the light.
Excellent. We've got a few in the chat. Hopefully I've got them in order. I love the idea of a gratitude journal, which could become part of a bedtime ritual. Absolutely. A nice way to end the day and reassuring it's okay to wake up during the night. Yeah. This has been a reassuring presentation for so many of us that don't enjoy a good night's sleep. And that's really in a nutshell is to create an awareness and a conversation about sleep. Yeah. So just want to move to the next slide if I can. We've got about 10 minutes left. So we will be sending this out. So this is a list of websites which we've compiled, mostly Australian, but all good. So there's some apps, calming apps, etc., sleeping apps. For those of you who have an Apple Watch, quite often you can actually monitor your sleep on the watch if you are that way inclined. You might get a little graph. There's raising children. So they've got some really good ideas for child and youth. Australian sleep disorder fact sheets, Sleep Hub, TED Talks, amazing. So for those who don't know, TED Talks, they're short presentations by experts in the field of something. And if you get onto TED Talks Sleep, this is TED Talks Sleep Science, they're just incredible. These passionate, qualified individuals who are really wanting to move on how we can support sleep better. So it's quite an exciting innovation. Okay, so next slide, please, Jai. So we have the dreaded feedback survey. So we're going to take a few moments. So on the screen is what we call a QR code, and that's a scanned what are we going to call it, image, and behind that is a survey. So how you access the survey is you take your mobile phone and you go to your camera and you raise it to the screen, and you should see a little yellow or white box around it. And if you click on that, that will take you to the feedback form. So there's 12 questions around about. Some are drop-down menus, others are text. And I really focus on the free text because that's where we get the amazing comments. So we have 40-something people here still in the audience. We would love 40-something feedback forms filled in. So just going to have a couple of minutes for people to do this. And for those who aren't sure about the QR code, we can run through it again. And it really does help us to improve how we present the content and continue on with what's been received really positively. So for those who are able to access the QR code, the survey, we'll just take a couple of minutes to fill that out. So we should have
if anybody is struggling with a QR code, I have put the direct link that they can just click straight into the link in the chat window. So you'll be able to access it through there as well.
So after this, we just have one more slide and that's it. And then we'll have a quick chat. Oh, could we say no? So I'm Linda, and Jess is my colleague from Victoria, and Jai is also from Victoria, who's driving the tech. Couldn't do without you. I'll just read out some more in the chat because I hate to think I've missed someone. So Jai's put the code. We've got highly recommend a book, Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker. Yeah, it's mind-blowing. Absolutely should be a prerequisite for being human. Perfect, absolutely.
I think Matthew's the one on a lot of the TED Talks.
Oh, great. Yeah. There's also, while we're filling out the forms, the ABC podcast. The doctor who gave us all those amazing COVID updates, I can't recall his name at the moment, but he's actually interviewing a sleep specialist who is so passionate about sleep, and he talks about narcolepsy, which is the ability to fall asleep like in the middle of the day. But he also talks about the science of sleep and the impact of sleep. So there's a lot of passionate sleep technicians out there. Okay, has everybody almost finished their forms? Might just move on to the next slide. Thanks, Jai. So just with a few minutes to go, this is our final one. So this is our email if you have any inquiries in the future. So recovery@redcross.org.au. And just, I guess, while we're just wrapping up, are there any sort of one or two points that have really struck a chord with those in the audience? Oh,
one thing I think is important to realise that you're not the only one with a problem. There are many people with a situation, and I think that actually helps as well. You know.
Absolutely. It is probably one of the most universal elements to our lives. No matter who you are, where you are, what age you are, sleep is absolutely critical. Yeah. Jess has just sent me a message, just for wrap up for a minute, how people can make their bedrooms a sanctuary. So that's going to be really personal, but I would probably say decluttering if possible. If not, put a big blanket over your pile of whatever it is. Fresh air, making your bed every morning, that can be part of your routine. So when you walk into your bedroom, you actually have your fresh bed made. Perhaps, changing your linen and your pillows and your pillowcases a little bit more often, rotating your mattress around, just so, again, it's really lovely and fresh. Having a nice glass of, water or a cool drink by your bed, some mister, I can't recall, can't think. Nice smelly smoke.
Aromatherapy.
Aromatherapy, yes. Yeah. And you could do what I did, which was actually go, because I live in regional South Australia. When I went to Adelaide, I hunted around in the stationery and found just a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful book and a lovely pen. I've also got a really nice pencil as well. And that was my gratitude diary, my gratitude book. And so I have it by the side of my bed. It's so beautiful. I don't want to clutter it up with everything else. And that's there, and I use it every night. So again, it's treating yourself to really have that sleeping space or bedroom as a sanctuary. And perhaps the dogs might have to sleep in a basket in the ground. But yes, so any other ideas for your sleep sanctuary?
Linda, I've actually got a dog that occasionally decides to do a great big belly flop on top of the bed, and that's out a big sigh. So, yeah, trying really hard to encourage the dog to stay on her own bed is really important. She always does it when I'm in a really deep sleep. There's this massive, kaplosh on the bed. Yeah, so I think I've got to work on her sleep, habits as well.
Absolutely. Discipline is probably one thing we didn't have a PowerPoint slide for. Okay, so we might go to the last slide again. And on behalf of Red Cross, Australian Red Cross, myself, Linda McCabe, Jess Davison, Jai Edwards, who do amazing work in Victoria in communities that many of you are living and working in and supporting, would like to thank you all so much for not only joining, but for staying 2 hours in an evening is a long commitment, but actively participating and being open to the possibility of learning new things about an element that is so important to our lives, which is a great night's sleep. So Jess, Jai and I wish you a very wonderful, peaceful, restful, restorative sleep tonight and for many, many more nights to come. So thank you. If anyone would like to stay on for a few minutes, that's not a problem. But otherwise, thank you for attending. And if any of you would like this sleep workshop run again in your communities, face-to-face, etc., please just reach out. Thanks, everyone.